What's up, everybody? Welcome to From the Archive, the series in which I'm going to go through my personal stash, an archive of books, whether it's wargame related or not, and pick one and share it with you all, like talk about it, things of that nature. Over the years of being, a nerd and into this hobby and whatnot, I've amassed a collection of books, and for one reason or another, I tend to keep them, and whether or not I even really enjoy them, I just tend to keep them because I like physical, tangible books on stuff. And a lot of these books, pretty much all these books you're looking at here in one way or another, has helped shape my personal tastes, thoughts, and ideas when it comes to collecting miniatures in this wargaming hobby, maybe as direct inspiration or just something in the back of my mind. So I thought it would be cool as I unpack these things to share them with you. So what I'm going to do in each ramble, I'm going to pick one book kind of haphazardly, and I'm gonna go sit down at the table with you, and we're gonna look through it. I'm gonna give a basic thought synopsis on it, share my opinions on it, break it down a little bit, maybe look inside of it a little, and just talk about it, whether it's a novel, a codex, or a tabletop RPG book or whatever. So some of these books I have multiples of for some reason, not really sure why. Other books I do not, and it's just going to be some fun. I thought it'd be cool to kind of get some insight, perhaps, and share my thoughts on stuff that I have in my small little personal collection here, and for you all to share your thoughts as well on what I'm looking at when it comes to the book in question. What you have? Do you have the same book? What are your thoughts on it? And things like that. So this should be a lot of fun. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to grab one of these books, and I'll meet you at the table. Welcome back to the table. In this episode of From the Archive, we're doing a novel. And this is one that's very near and dear to me. It's part of a setting that's very near and dear to me. It's the Magic the Gathering collectible card gaming setting. This is the Thran. It is a fantasy novel, Magic the Gathering being a fantasy genre game. And let's just forget about the fact that it's Magic the Gathering for a second. Let's just look at it as the Thran, complete with classic, semi-cheesy fantasy cover art. Before the Brothers' War, before the 5 colors of magic. Still, again, let's forget it's Magic the Gathering. It just makes it just sound old. Before history itself, the plane of Dominaria was ruled by the Thran. They built machines and artifacts, the likes of which have never since been seen. But amid this civilization, a shadow took root. One that would stretch its arms across space and time. The hideous evil of Phyrexia was born. Just from that blurb, forgetting the fact that it's a Magic the Gathering novel, you know enough to know if you should get involved in reading this book. Yes, it's a Magic the Gathering novel, meaning it's part of the IP and everything. This actually came out in 1999, later reprinted in 2009, available as an ebook still, probably relatively easy to find as a physical book. This one is from, I think, 2000, 2001. I forget when I bought it, right on there. I enjoyed this novel. It's probably my favorite Magic the Gathering novel and one of my favorite just fun fantasy novels. It's a foundational novel, meaning it kind of sets the stage for the setting, but it isn't complicated to get involved in if you know nothing about the setting, which is why I said let's forget about it being a part of Magic the Gathering. So let's still forget that. We are looking at an ancient society that is in its waning years, you could say, of magic and artifice. Which I love artificing and artifacts and machinery, stuff like that in a fantasy setting. Especially when it's not steampunk. I don't dislike steampunk, but when it's really that refined, pure artifice, energy imbued into a thing to do a thing, not steam tech, I really enjoy it. So bonus points to this. But we're looking at ancient society in its final years, and we are seeing the rise of an evil, the Phyrexia, or the Phyrexians. And that's all you need to know. If those names are foreign to you, it's no different than when you first read The Hobbit, or if you are a Harry Potter fan, I'm not, when you first read that, or if you're a Game of Thrones fan,
of the novels. I'm not. When you first read that, it's no different in things feeling alien or just foreign to you than any other setting that you started reading for the first time. So that's why I say forget that it's Magic the Gathering for a moment. It is showing us the rise of this evil faction, whose leader, by the name of Yawgmoth, was a doctor from the Thran society that was exiled, a eugenics doctor. We get to see his sick and twisted rise to power. And that's basically what this novel is about. The downfall of the Thran society and the rise of Yawgmoth from exiled doctor to leader of the Phyrexians. And what that means and how it goes about. If that sounds interesting to you in a fantasy setting with magic and artifice going on, then I'd recommend this book to you. Having said that, let's now reinstate the fact that it is a Magic the Gathering novel. The plane of Dominaria, which is what it talks about, is one of the different planes of existence in Magic the Gathering. You can think of the different planes basically as different planets if you wanted to. Dominaria was the central plane and core setting for a while in Magic the Gathering. So this takes place thousands of years before any of the Magic blocks did stuff on Dominaria. So we're seeing the setting kind of take shape here in this novel. And it does it by jumping back and forth in time. Nothing crazy. All of it's thousands of years in the past. But we see the Thran Phyrexian War happen and unfold before us as we read about it. And then it'll jump 9 years before the war, 6 years before the war, or whatever. Very clearly, mind you. It's not jarring. It's very clear when it does jump back in time and then forward in time again. Very clear. But we see the war unfold, day 1, day 2, and so on. And then we go back in time and learn how we got to this point. So you kind of have your cake and eat it too, in that sense. You get to see the cool action and stuff and the war happen and the events unfold that way at the climax of everything, and we get to see the build up to it. Having said that, all that is really important about it being a Magic the Gathering novel is that it's a build up of a plane of which if you played during that time, you would know about the Phyrexians from the cards, and you get to see why they're so hideous and evil and everything. So you don't need to know anything about the game at all to read this particular novel. And that's why I really enjoy it, and I really recommend it to basically anybody who's a fan of the fantasy genre. All playing the Magic the Gathering card game will do for you, especially if you played back in the day, is you, in your mind's eye, when you read about stuff, you can go, that sounds like X, Y, or Z card. Does it do anything for the telling of the story in this novel? No. It's just connected dots. So the reason I say it like this is because what you're really looking at is a fun fantasy genre novel that happens to be part of an official IP, Magic the Gathering. And as such, it's kind of a foundation novel setting the stage for one of the most popular planes in Magic the Gathering, Dominaria. If you are a fan of Magic the Gathering, even newer fan or not, old, new, if you've been around for years, you're just getting involved, that means you enjoy fantasy enough to get involved in a card game like that. I encourage you to give the Thran a shot if you haven't. If you're a fan of fantasy genre and just know that Magic the Gathering exists and that's it, I encourage you to give the Thran novel a shot if you enjoy fantasy and artifice and all that jazz. If you do not like Magic the Gathering as a card game, because you're not a fan of card games or you don't like the whole collectible aspect or whatever, you don't like dropping hundreds of dollars every few months potentially to stay competitive, quote unquote, stuff like that. If you're not a fan of Magic the Gathering for that reason, you can still be a fan of the novels, and particularly this novel. You can still enjoy it if you like the fantasy setting. So let me just kind of delve a bit deeper in that before kind of wrapping things up here, because I don't want to get caught in too many tangents. Magic the Gathering, the card game, the cards have mechanics on them. So, tap the card, or this card does X, Y, or Z, activate it to do X, Y, or Z. A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, right? That's obviously how you play the game, the cards. There's flavor text that cards tend to have. Not every card has it though. And the reason I say this is flavor text is like a little fluff blurb. And not every card, even in modern expansion block sets, not every card has flavor text on it. Sometimes the mechanical text is too much to include flavor text, other times they just don't have it. As a result, really learning the story in any real meaningful way by just playing the card game and without knowing, without having maybe saw the trailer from the company or read up about this particular block on the website, just from the cards, you're not really learning anything. You can't really make a cohesive understanding of the setting. And I'm saying this because it's the card game itself and the novelization, the story behind it, they're almost exclusive from each other. Because you can get into the card game because you think the card art's cool, you like the concept of the 5 colors of magic and artifacts and the mechanics and the synergy of stuff, and you just have fun with it that way, without really knowing anything about the setting. You know, when you have a card that is about a particular character, it's a character card or whatever. Yeah, okay, I know who this guy is. He is so and so of such and such. Okay, doesn't mean you really know what's going on, but you get the bare minimalist scraps of information. So chances are most people that I know who just aren't into Magic, don't really like Magic the Gathering, it's the card game. But they are fantasy fans and could enjoy the story behind it. If that's you for why you don't like Magic the Gathering, then I recommend checking out the Thran novel anyway. If you know nothing about Magic the Gathering and have an opinion, but you like fantasy, check it out. Basically, if you like the fantasy genre and you don't dislike Magic the Gathering because of its story specifically, which most people don't even know the story enough to like or dislike it, then there's a chance you would enjoy this novel. And that's one of its real strengths, right? It's not some masterpiece of fiction. I'm not trying to make it sound like that. But it's a fun novel that people will enjoy. They just have to forget about the fact that it's part of a setting. This is different from a lot of IPs out there with novels written about them, right? 40K, for example, a lot of novels in 40K, the Horus Heresy included, if you don't know what you're getting into, you're going to be lost and not really following what's going on at all. It's just kind of the byproduct of being a novel in the 40K setting, just how it's done. But not so with Magic the Gathering with this particular novel of Thran. It's no more confusing to follow than your first time reading The Hobbit was. You know, let's forget about the movies, right? If your first foray into The Hobbit or Lord of the Rings was the novels, or your first foray into Game of Thrones or Harry Potter, if you're fans of those things, was the novels, then reading this novel is going to be no more jarring or potentially confusing to you than learning the setting for a novel in general for the first time. So yeah, if everything I said sounds interesting to you, if you're a fantasy genre fan, if you like magical stuff and artificing, you know, floating cities, airships, mana cannon batteries, and thermal rays, but all done very magic-y, artifice-y setup, which I'm a big fan of, then I encourage you to seek out this book. Again, ebook should be pretty easy to find. I imagine you could find a physical copy on Amazon or something fairly easy as well. And with that said, I'm done gushing on this novel. I just wanted to do a novel from the archive. I haven't done that yet. And when I was looking at my different novels, I was like, you know what? Magic the Gathering is a setting I'm a huge fan of. This novel was awesome to read. But let me gush on it for a little bit. So anyways, if you have read this novel, did you like it or not? Share your thoughts in the comment section below. If what I said here makes you seek it out and read it, let me know in the comments as well. I will say, the different people that I do know, which is only like a handful, 3 or 4 that have read this book, all liked it. So yes, we're all Magic the Gathering fans already, but I still am a firm believer that you don't have to know anything about Magic the Gathering to be able to follow and enjoy this book, and that's one of its big strengths. And I think the unfortunate thing is when people see an IP attached to a novel, if they don't know anything about the IP, they tend to shy away from it, and you don't need to do that with this one here. Anyways, Share your thoughts in the comment section below. I've rambled on long enough. So this has been the Thran and Magic the Gathering novel from 1999, reprinted in 2009. Thanks very much for stopping by, and until next time, take it easy.